everyone, and welcome to Beyond Focus TV. My name is Angie Daniel, and I am your hostess for the show. Tonight, we have with us Miss Midwin Charles. She is a lawyer from the Associate of Midwin Charles and Associates. We're going to take a short break. I'll introduce her to you so we can talk about our content for the show. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are here with Miss Midwin Charles and Associates from Charles and Associates. Welcome, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Usually when I start the show, I'll ask my guests to say a little bit about themselves so the community will know who you are, what you do, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. My name is Midwin Charles. I am the founder and principal managing partner of the law firm Midwin Charles and Associates. We're based here in New York, in Manhattan. Where we do criminal defense and civil litigation. I am also a TV legal analyst.
Yes.
So that means that I get on TV, I run my mouth, and talk about legal cases, mostly for CNN and HLN and a couple other networks. And I'm also a guest radio host for WBLS here in New York, 107.5 here in New York.
Oh, you know, I've watched you a couple of times where you would give great conversation, start great conversations about what women need to do. Based on the understanding of, what women's rights are, what do you think a woman's role in today's society is right now?
Well, I think it depends on the woman, right? I mean, we're not all the same. We all have different desires and we all have different goals. But I think one of the things that I think about in today's society is that women have the most options that we've had ever. Right? I mean, you could do whatever it is that you want to do. You could be the lawyer, you could be the doctor. Now, whether you can have it all, i.e., a flourishing career where you're thriving and, a good mom and what have you, I think the jury's still out on that. I don't know that is something that can be done wonderfully or
I would
excellently.
say.
There are a lot of women who are struggling to balance it all. But I think one of the best things that we have right now going for us as women is that the laws are there. Speaking from a legal perspective, as a lawyer, I'm always looking at things from a legal perspective. Yeah. I think the laws are there to kind of protect women and making sure that when they go to work that they're in a safe environment, they're not facing or dealing with sexual harassment in terms of promotion and trying to kind of rise above what they call the glass ceiling. I think that there are laws there that women can utilize if they feel that they are being taken advantage of or being discriminated against in the workplace.
Practically part of my question is that what should really, from looking at you, I think you are the epitome of what success would look like, right?
Oh, really?
Right? Okay, I got to say it because, but what should be their focus in terms of growing within this society?
Well, I think one of the focuses should be to always work on the self and always work on being the best that you can be. And I know it sounds really cliche, but it's so true. I think as women, oftentimes, because we're so scattered in terms of responsibilities, right? Because not only do we have to be great at work, but the family needs you, the children need you,
the husband needs
you, husband, so your sister, your girlfriend, everybody needs you, and so you are a little bit more stretched thinner than most of our male counterparts. I think we could all agree with that because women are so good at multitasking, and sometimes, as a result, we are constantly bombarded with more and more responsibilities and expectations. But I think one of the ways to kind of work around that and what we should do is focus on excellence.
Okay.
Every time I talk to young girls or attorneys who are aspiring to work in TV or start their own business and work for themselves, that's one of the things that I always talk about. It's the hallmark of excellence. Everything you do, you really have to give it your all. Like, is this really the best that I could do? Did I really cross every T and dot every I? And I think.
But how do you? I don't mean to cut you off, but how do you be the best or the best of what you do, right? At that point where you are so spread across thinly, you said it earlier. How do you measure it up to that?
One at a time. One at a time. And I think that as women, we have to be honest with ourselves. And when people are demanding of our time, you have to literally say no. It
is really hard to say no. It is really hard to say no,
in the
though.
English language, apart from I, but it's a short word. It's really simple. It's an N and an O. No, I can't do that right now because I'm working on something, and that something I'm working on needs my undivided attention. Now, I think because we're women, you can kind of get it done really quickly and really finish what you're doing with a razor-like focus and then move on to the next. But I believe personally that that's really is the only way that you can kind of get it done, is really stay on top of it and do it well and then keep it moving.
Earlier, you and I, we were having this conversation where you talk about like as a business owner. Yeah. Having this within where I live at, like my community or where what my friends are going through, you have young women who are single, who have kids, who are trying to create their own business. You as a business owner, like you are the you are the manager of what you do. How do you tell them or to be the best within that? How do you help them out with that?
Well, it's hard. But one of the things that I always focus on, and I'm actually writing a book about this, is a plan. You have to have a plan. And it doesn't even have to be the perfect plan. It doesn't have to be, like an award-winning plan. But you really have to plan out, what is the business? Who are you trying to reach as your customer base? And what are the 4 or even 3 things you can do to reach the customer base? You have to have a marketing and publicity plan in place. Because I don't care how good your product is, I don't care how good your services are. If you're not reaching a client base, your business will never take off. And I'm talking from personal experience. Yes. Yeah. You could be the best darn lawyer, doctor, accountant the world has seen.
Makeup artist, whatever.
Right, but no one will know if you're not able to get those clients in the door, get them to pay on time, make sure the checks don't bounce. I mean, there are just so many things that you have to take care of that have nothing to do with the service or the product that you offer. And you have to be prepared for that. A lot of people aren't prepared for that.
Yes.
I've come across so many, like for example, chefs, right? You're an excellent chef. You can cook really well. But what do you know about running a business of a restaurant?
Or vice versa.
Or catering or what have you. The two have nothing to do with one another.
Okay.
Right? So in other words, I know lawyers who aren't that great. I hate to say it. But they're so successful.
Because they know the other part of it.
They understand the business part, and that's where they put their focus on. So one of the things that I always recommend to women is, we already know that you're good at the product you're trying to offer or the service you're trying to offer. But if you don't know the business side, take a class.
Take a class.
Get a book. Learn about it. Don't be so don't be filled with such hubris.
Yes.
Like I was when I started my firm. I was like, wow, listen,
I'm going to do this.
I'm the best lawyer that I ever was. And so the clients are going to be lining out the door. Not so much. You really have to put in the time, the energy, and the work that it takes to understand. What is the marketing plan? Are you going to advertise in newspapers? Are you going to start going to events and become well known in the community? Are you going to have flyers? Where are you going to distribute the flyers? Who should you be meeting with? Who should you let people know, this is what I do and I'm looking for business? You have to literally humble yourself.
And then start from the networking point of view. Yeah. I like that. Wait, I have a second question for you in terms of, you as a person, because you have so much to offer. But before we continue, I'm going to take a short break. We'll be right back. We're going to take a break. Welcome back. We are here having a great conversation of how we can help ourselves with Midwin Charles. Part of the conversation before we ended, took a break, we were talking about like how when creating a business, like women should have a business plan. Because I think what happened is that in today's society, there's so much, the expectation for us to succeed is so grand, but yet everything else still, is part of that. Like you still expected to go home and cook. You still expected to be a mother. You still expected to be a wife. Still expected to go to school, and yet you still expected all this excellence, right? And then be you at the same time. How we were mentioning of how to create a plan within that, and you mentioned as a business you must have a plan.
You have to. Mm-hmm. You have to. You have to have a plan in terms of where do you see yourself going? Mm-hmm. How do you see yourself generating revenue? Because that's what makes a business successful is profitability.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, and making sure that your overhead isn't too high, that you aren't spending thousands of dollars on beautiful stationery and business cards and websites, but you don't have any money coming in to kind of buttress, or offset all those expenses. So a plan is key. Are there conferences that you should be going to every year? Because those are tax deductible. If you spend money to go to conferences that are related to your business,
what you're doing,
where you can connect with people who are similarly situated as yourself, that's another way to kind of help yourself get your foot in the door in whatever business or
ventures that you're
trying to get into. Because one of the things that I do is I counsel a lot of attorneys who are looking to switch. They're looking to do something completely different, like I used to work at a law firm, but now I want to get into TV, or I want to get into acting, or what have you. But they don't know how to do that because they've spent the past 10, 15 years working as a lawyer, which means they know all the legal conferences.
Legal access,
Yeah, but you don't know anything about acting. Well, start learning. Start learning. What are the top 3 trade magazines in acting? Who are the top 3 acting coaches? Start studying with them. Who are the top, and that's what I always tell people. Like, if you don't know, you better ask somebody. Like, you need to start learning. It's just like when you learned to become whatever profession you're in now, you have to start from scratch, really, to learn that new profession that you're trying to transition to. It's not going to happen overnight, and I think a lot of time you'll come across a professional who's successful at what they're doing now, but it's not their passion. It's not their dream.
But how do you make that transition, though? How do you make that transition, knowing that I have responsibility, right? I have a job, but I'm not passionate about what I do. I have I'll use me for example. I know I'm passionate about A, right? And I'm doing B for a living. And every day you go into B and it's like, oh my God. I know. So how do you create the transition for you to not go, broke at it and still make that, because you're not happy where you're at?
Well, that's kind of what I'm talking about. While you're still in B, collecting that check every 2 weeks, you need to figure out what is it about A that you love. Is it because it's something you enjoy periodically, like a hobby, or is it something that you see yourself
that's in your mind,
right? Or is it something you see yourself doing full time, where you are earning a living doing it? If so, one of the things that I always tell people that I counsel, and I'm speaking to a group on Tuesday about this too, is start to know who are the top 3 people that are incredibly successful or that you idealize who are doing A.
That's a good way of looking at it.
If you want to be a journalist, like say right now you're an accountant, but your dream is to be a journalist, an international correspondent covering war-torn countries.
I can see that.
Okay, but if that's the dream, you should be able to tell me who are the top 3 international correspondents. Who is the number 1 international correspondent at CNN? Who is the number 1?
Isn't that Anderson?
No, not really, because he has his own show. But Vladimir Dudier, who's
exactly
just got appointed, and he's covering Lagos right now. Yeah,
all right.
He's a Haitian sensation.
I know.
But I digress. But my point is, you have to start becoming well versed in A.
In A.
Before you jump into A, you need to know A. You need to understand A. So
taking classes in A would be part of what you need to do.
Right, but you identify who are the most successful people doing A. You study their bio. What did they do? Where did they go to school? How did they get their next opportunity, and what have you? Then you start maybe taking a class in A. while you're still collecting that check for B. Don't run away from the job, you know.
And then it's like
exactly.
Okay.
So it takes time, but it can be done. You have to start really kind of dipping your toe in that pool of A before you jump in.
Okay, because you might be in another situation where now you didn't like B and you still don't like A.
Well, you're not ready for A.
Okay.
And you drown.
It's like now you're out.
Exactly, right? Because
know.
you know how sometimes they say, you know, God only gives you what you're ready for.
And that's so true.
And so sometimes you may get what you want, but you weren't ready for it, so you squander it and you lose it.
Okay.
So that's why you have to prepare. Just like you prepared to do B, you have to prepare to do A. Or
Okay.
when you get to A, you won't survive, right? When you look at, for example, actors and actresses, they haven't survived or stood the test of time because sometimes they weren't ready.
They were not
They
ready.
might have gotten that dream role a little too young.
Okay.
Or they weren't prepared. Their skills weren't up to par. They didn't understand what A was about.
Okay.
You see
Well,
what
I'm sitting there like
Yeah.
like I'm in church. I'm like,
Yeah, you know, just dip your little toe in A. And see, I don't, you know, I think I like A. I'm not sure.
Okay.
You know, is this a river?
But
that's
it's really
frozen over?
interesting for us to talk about that because I think a lot of time people kind of after reading your bio, and then it triggered something for me to think about because part of it is like if somebody were to go on your website and just to see you have the whole actress look.
Oh,
You know?
do I?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
you have the whole package and the whole look, and then it's kind of like, how do you come up with the idea of like how? I think I should work. My question is too, when did you know this is what you wanted to do? You knew you wanted to be a lawyer, and then you decided to go into corresponding for TV. When did you know that?
Right.
When did you
See,
make that
and
transition?
that's what I mean by dipping your toe in A. See, I knew I always wanted to be a lawyer, right? The dream was to go work at a big firm in New York, make a ton of money, become partner, get that corner office overlooking the skyscrapers and everything. And I did that. I got to the big firm and I was sitting in my office. I remember we were in Lower Manhattan and I was overlooking Brooklyn. I was like, oh, how poetic. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. And here I am in my Manhattan office overlooking, you know, the Brooklyn Bridge and what have you. But it wasn't, but when I got there, it was like, I don't know if I love this.
Okay.
Like, I like it, but I don't know if I like it enough to be here at 2 in the morning, roaming the halls, you know, looking half possessed.
Okay.
No sexy. Okay. so I was kind of trying to figure out, well, what's next? And then you kind of go, I went through a little depression because I was like, oh my God, I don't have a backup plan. I worked so hard to get here.
Yeah.
And now that I'm here, I'm not really loving it. It's not all that. And so I tried going to conferences. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Let me go to that conference. Let me talk to this person. Let me see what their job is like. Let me see if they like it. I had coffee with people like, you know, Lord, I would love to talk to you about this and what you do. People love talking about what they do. So
and it's very interesting.
Yeah, and coffee, not lunch. People don't want to commit to lunch. The coffee, you know. So I did a lot of that. Still couldn't figure out what I wanted. I interviewed for other smaller firm jobs. I interviewed for in-house legal counsel jobs. Some of them I got, some of them I didn't. I turned them down because it just wasn't there.
Okay.
Then one day, one of the partners at the firm sent an email for an event that was being held by the Association of Black Women Attorneys. And there was going to be a producer there from Court TV.
Okay.
And she sent it to me and said, I saw this and it made me think of you. I don't know why, but I think you should go. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll go, you know. And so I went, and the woman was there talking to black women attorneys because she was looking for more black women to be on Court TV as guest correspondents or, you know, commentators, right? Unpaid. You know, I got to say unpaid so y'all can understand the journey. Unpaid commentators. And so I went up to her afterwards and said, listen, I would love to do this. This sounds just like me. You know, here's my background as a lawyer. Here's my skill set. Here's what I've done. Here are the kind of cases I've worked on. And she was like, all right, well, let's have coffee in 2 weeks. And we did. And within 2 weeks after that, I was on TV. And let me tell you something. When the cameraman said 2 seconds to air, it was like a little, right in my, and I was like, oh my God, this is it.
Wait.
This is it. You know, listen.
I love that because, you know, my camera is telling me 2 seconds.
Yeah, I get all excited. I get all excited.
Wait, I love it.
I love it.
You love it?
Love it, love it.
I love this. I love this. And I love this conversation. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back, continuing our conversation on how to do better, like change your style, change your life, and make it better. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Beyond Focus TV. If you are just turning on, we are having this hot and funny and great, candid conversation about how you've made your transition from law firm to TV court person.
Yeah, well, I still do the law firm thing.
Yes.
We need the business, we need the clients. But as I was saying, I went to this event, met someone, and I just walked up to her afterwards, like most people do, got her card, reached out, and then within 2 weeks, I was on a show called Open Court on Court TV. And I say that because when I talked earlier about dipping your toe in pool A, or you think you want to do A, you're currently doing B, that's kind of my point, which is I knew all about B. I knew all about being a lawyer, court, depositions, transcripts, trial.
But I love that because the fact that it was an unpaid position.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we're like, you thinking unpaid, I'm not doing this.
No, listen.
Yeah.
You gotta get over it. People need to get over themselves and humble themselves.
Yeah.
It's like, ain't nobody gonna give you anything if you don't know what you're doing. Get over yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, learn something and come back to me.
Yeah.
I get a lot of young people who want to, work for me and they want to intern. And I'm like, but what can you do?
Yes.
Like, what is your skill set? What do you bring to the table? No one's gonna hand you anything.
That is great.
But that aside, my point is I knew all about law, but I knew nothing about TV. Okay. I knew nothing about journalism. That wasn't my background. I didn't know, you have to get an agent. How do I get an agent? What's required to get an agent? So one of the things that I first did was I took a class.
Okay.
I went online and I looked up TV hosting class, commentating class, acting class, and I found a particular class and I took it. And the best thing about that was it started to introduce me to people who are in that world, right? Because when you're doing A, everybody. I mean B, everybody in the world of B.
It's so true,
right? I know all the black lawyers in New York City, a large part of them, because that's what I had been doing for years. But I didn't know anything about agents. I don't know who are the top agents. I didn't know how do you get an agent. I didn't know that it takes a little while to get a paid TV job. There are people who go to school for that, and they start doing that from the very beginning. Okay. Do I need to become a journalist first to become a legal expert? Can I become, can I just go to being, so there are all these things that you're not going to know. So does it make sense to quit B before you even know anything about A and how to do well
how to survive
and how to excel in A? And that's the point. It's like you have to become very familiar with A, just as familiar as you are with B before you jump ship.
Okay. I wanted to ask you this question because I think it's important at least for me, after reading your bio and listening to you, to be so successful, and then for you to not only doing court TV, you have your own law firm, you work also with a whole lot of young women's group. Mm-hmm. Why is it so important for you to keep in touch with your community and helping them?
Well, because someone helped me.
Okay.
You see? Honestly.
I love that answer.
And there are so many young people who have no guidance.
Yes.
And when I went to law school, I didn't really have any guidance. I didn't know any lawyers personally. Okay. There were none in my family. So I kind of stumbled and found my way. And when I got there, I immediately identified, because I'm that way. I'm kind of like, okay, who's the best one in here? And then we're going to be friends. That's how I roll. I like to align myself with people who
positive
are doing
people.
it. And people who are just doing it. I don't have time. Like, okay, if you're not showing up on time, if you're not working hard, I don't got time for you. Because you can bring me down. You can bring my energy down, which is important too. When you're trying to make things happen. Yes. You need to align yourself with people and things that are moving this way, not that way. Okay. So, but there are a lot of young people out there who don't have any guidance, who don't know that this is what you're supposed to do. If you want to get to destination C, you need to do A and B first. There are a lot of people who don't know that. And when I came across a lot of colleagues at my old firm and in law school, many of them, their parents were lawyers, their uncles were lawyers, their aunts were lawyers. They knew what to do. They got the little printout. It is the truth.
By
the time they were 10, like, here's what you're going to do. And it's a little checklist. And I didn't have that. So, and I think in order to kind of level that playing field, I think we need to do that for each other.
Our community.
Reach back and let people know, this is what's required.
I'm so glad that you've mentioned this because I think over the weekend, part of what I found out is that at Brooklyn College, right there, there is a BS degree with a MD program, and not too many people know about it because it's not something that we talk about. Our community, we don't talk about, you have to go to college. That's one of the things now. We're all talking about, you have to go to college. But what kind of study lines that you need to do? Where do you want to go? Where, what's your, people relate to, I'm just going to get liberal arts. And then, we don't have that guidance.
You're right. And there's no correlation, I think. There's no direct correlation between getting a particular degree and earning a living.
A living afterwards.
Nor is there a direct correlation between pursuing your passion and earning a living. And I think everyone is looking for the way to marry two or the three, right? So that if your child loves graphic design, and wants to get a degree in graphic design and a master's in graphic design, but then there's no one to show them after they get those degrees. You got a wall full of degrees.
Exactly. What do you do?
Where are you working?
Yes.
How are you looking for work? Who are your mentors in the graphic design world?
Yes.
Are you inserting yourself in that world? And that's what I always tell people. Like, if you really want to do something, you have to immerse yourself in that world. Like, I talk with a group of young girls, Women in Entertainment Empowerment Network.
Yes.
And they'll say, I want to be a television producer. And so the next question I say is, okay, well, who are the top 3 television producers that you admire?
I have to go learn about top 3 of everything now.
No answer. But then I kind of feel like, well, then I don't believe you. Like, if you came to interview with me and you said that, and I asked you that question, you didn't have an answer, I'd be like, next.
Okay. So if I were to ask you who are the top 3 lawyers?
In which area, or that I admire?
Oh, that you admire.
Yeah. I've always admired Johnny Cochran. I've always admired Johnny Cochran, and I know the managing partner for his firm now, who's a wonderful, good mentor, good lawyer. Charles Ogletree over at Harvard Law School. I worked for him.
Okay.
Best boss I've ever had my entire life. Okay. Worked incredibly hard. And who would I say is the third? Loretta Lynch. She's currently the
Isn't she with?
She's with the Eastern District of New York. She's a federal prosecutor.
Okay.
She's the federal prosecutor for the Eastern District of New York. She's fabulous.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are your mentors. These are people that you look up to.
They're people that I look up to.
Yeah.
Where I
like their style.
Yeah, and their bio, what they do, where they start, where they work. Like, you gotta know that.
Yeah.
And people have to remember, like, it's a competition out here. Like, this isn't like, I want to be a TV producer and someone
then bang
here. Like, what?
Yes, it is hard work. Believe me, it is hard work.
TV producers and their dad is a TV producer. Like, don't you think they're gonna get the job before you?
Yes.
So you need to know something. You need to kind of have some sort of skill set, and you have to demonstrate a true desire for something.
Okay. Right? This is almost over. It's almost the end of our show. Because
Sorry, I talk a lot.
No, I love it. I love it. And what we're doing is actually giving pointers to serious situations where people can align themselves with you. If someone would like to get in touch with you or talk to you or attend a session, or where would they, how
sure,
can they
reach you?
Sure,
they can call my firm, 212-551-3617.
Okay.
Or they can email us info@charleslawfirm.com.
Okay, so it's info
at charleslawfirm.com. One word. charleslawfirm.com.
And the phone number is
212-551 3617.
3617.
Yeah.
Okay, great. This is the end of our show, and it's been so great. I mean, I've heard you before. It's inspiring.
Oh, really?
I mean, you're so young, but you're so candid about it.
Because it's been hard, and I want people to know that it's not easy. It's been hard, like really hard.
Yeah.
Really hard.
I love it. I love the fact that you're seriously telling them, like, this is the truth. This is what it is.
Well, I don't believe
Work
in
hard.
lying.
Yeah.
I don't believe in lying. Like, it's not easy. Like, if you read the bio, it reads real like, oh, she did this and she listened.
It didn't come easy.
It was like clawing, like working and calling and meeting and coffee and conferences and and spending money and
Yes.
making sure that the suit is nice and, you know, calling this person and doing my research. And it's a lot of work. It's not easy.
That's not easy.
But nothing worth having is easy.
I would say.
Yeah.
I would say.
Nothing worth having. If it was easy, everybody would have it.
At least we would be there.
Wouldn't there be 50 Anderson Coopers if it was easy?
Yeah, that would be more than that. We would have been there.
Or 50 Oprahs. I mean,
I want to be the
she
second
works
one.
hard.
She does.
She works hard. People don't get that, especially young people today. They don't get that.
Yeah,
They
and it's
work
good to
hard.
have people like us letting them know that,
Yeah.
you know, it's not easy. It's not easy
Ain't
to.
nobody gonna give you nothing.
I love the way you keep saying that.
It's true. Well, because I think we're dealing with a younger generation where, unfortunately, their parents have given them too much.
Yes.
And done everything for them and picked up after them, so they don't have a concept. So they're very.
The expectation is.
The expectation is
oh,
unbelievable.
yeah. Yeah.
Like they don't have a concept of like I actually have to work for something.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, ma'am.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Miss Charles. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
coming.
You're welcome.
And thank you for sharing with us.
Sure.
This is the end of our show. I hope you enjoyed it. Give her a call. She'll be open to having a good conversation with you. Thank you so much for watching. See you then. Thanks a lot. This was good. I love it. I love it. I mean,
Can I